So in theory, they're saying that only people could be seen walking in front, but we don't know what's going on off to the side there. And of course, you don't see into the area, so maybe someone was there and in hiding. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't show anything. And as Attorney General Bondi admitted, the video is not conclusive one way or the other. Hey everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with our weekly update on social media. So much happening, mainly from Judicial Watch's perspective. We've had this eruption related to the Epstein scandal, and it began with a leak to Axios, the left-leaning publication by either the Justice Department or the FBI or maybe the White House. I don't know who leaked it. But it's the second leak that Axios got from at least the DOJ, it looks like. And the leak this time was of what is now an infamous document, which is the unsigned, undated, weird memo, as I call it, detailing the FBI and Justice Department's supposed investigation of the Epstein matter, conclusions about Epstein's death, whether there'll be other prosecutions, and whether we will get documents. And you can imagine the blowback was significant in the sense that the memo concluded that Epstein killed himself, that there's going to be no other prosecutions of anyone else. There's no evidence suggesting that it ought to happen. And we're not going to get any more documents, which was news to Judicial Watch since we were in a FOIA lawsuit for the Epstein records. So it caused a significant blow up, which has resulted in, according to reports, Dan Bongino getting to a political battle internally with Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, Dan being the Deputy Director of the FBI. But let's go to the memo first, because I've never really seen anything like this memo before. It is so unusual. First of all, it was leaked to Axios, so it wasn't even put up on the Justice Department website. It was leaked over the Independence Day holiday. And in it, it dissed Americans who were concerned about Epstein. It showed really contempt for the American people's right to know, and seemed oblivious to even FOIA law. And let me bring the memo up. I think I have it here. So here you have the memo. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. Probably won't be able to read it. Let me blow it up a little bit. The files relating to Epstein include a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography. Teams of agents, analysts, and attorneys and privacy and civil liberties experts. Well, that's strange. Who are those experts? Comb through the digital and documentary evidence with the aim of providing as much as information to the public while simultaneously protecting victims. I had missed that part of the document. Who were the privacy and civil liberty experts? Were they government employees or were they people from the outside? Curious. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal only served to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of child pornography. So they've got material and they don't want to release it. Do we want child pornography? Clearly we don't. And there should be protections under law to conveying or communicating those images, obviously for the children and generally speaking. But this isn't about child pornography. This is the first time that the administration or Pam Bondi or anyone else has talked about all this child pornography. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. So this is a government document, so you can't, It's not like someone's talking and you kind of get a feel for what they're saying. You don't have to wonder if they're prevaricating or shading what they're saying. So let's look at this line closely here. I'll bring it up on the screen. Let's read this. Let's go through this. Remember when we used to did you all, when you were younger, get taught how to diagram sentences? I should like to diagram this sentence, but we're going to logically look at it. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. Okay. So was there a client list or not? Seems to suggest there was, except it wasn't incriminating. Or it's unanswered. So much for reassuring the public there. There is also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. So credible evidence is different than having no evidence. Now, that conclusion may be fair, but what's the evidence? We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Okay, so that's another, I meant to look up what the basis for predication is in the FBI regulations. So there may be evidence, but it's not enough to predicate an investigation. So these are all judgment calls, and I'm not suggesting they're the wrong judgment calls. I am suggesting that unless we get the promised details of the basis for the judgment calls, given the prior special treatment of Epstein, we should be willing to question and be able to question what's going on here. One of our highest, later down in the document, one of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims. Perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. What do you mean unfounded theories? To me, that's a slap in the face. They're saying, all of you who have been concerned about Epstein, who he might have been working for, who he might have been allied with, who was helping him, and who he might have been engaged with in terms of criminal activity, other powerful individuals, all of that we won't get access to. And in fact, this is the weirdest, this might be the weirdest part. To that end, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information, okay, that's not true, regarding Epstein and ensured examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. So that's just classic. We've looked at all the evidence, and there's no evidence justifying further criminal investigations. There's no there. But you can't look at the evidence either. So you're just going to have to trust us. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And then later, they start talking about his suicide, or alleged suicide, his death. They say the FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell on August 10th of 2019. This conclusion is consistent with previous findings, including the August 19th, 2019 autopsy findings of the New York Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the 2019 position of the U.S. Attorney's Office. What do you mean a position? Was that their conclusion or a position? Come on, it's not an argument. It's whether something factually happened or not. And they also reference the 2023 conclusion of the DOJ's Office of Inspector General. Unmentioned is the family forensic investigator who concluded that he was killed, murdered. And the big difference is between the conclusion of the family's forensic investigator, a well-respected death investigation expert, forensic guy, was that he was strangled to death by human hands, because there's a specific bone that's broken that isn't typically broken during a suicide. And this is rich here too. The conclusion of that Epstein died by suicide is further supported by the video footage from the common area of the special housing unit where Epstein was housed at the time of his death. Anyone entering or attempting to enter the tier where Epstein's cell was located would have been captured by the footage. That's not true. It's clear from the footage. I don't know if we have any of the footage. Can we show some of it? Bring that up while I'm talking. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that from the time Epstein was locked in his cell around 10:40 on August 9th, 2019 until around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, nobody entered any tiers of the SHU. And there you have it. That's the memo. So they released a video that doesn't show his cell. I don't know if we're going to be able to get access to the video to show you here, but you can't see clearly or completely the exit and entry to the area where his cell is. So that's what it shows. So if you look to, I need to get a little closer. So you see these two doors, right? Those aren't cell doors. Those are, one of them at least is an entryway for staff. You basically look over the railing at 11 to 12 to 1 o'clock, to 12 o'clock. See where the cursor is? It's the stairwell all the way to the right. So there's one stairwell to the left and there's another one to the right, but you can't see the one to the right, and that's where Epstein is. So in theory, they're saying that only people could be seen walking front, but we don't know what's going on off to the side there. And of course, you don't see into the area, so maybe someone was there and in hiding. But it doesn't matter because it doesn't show anything. And as Attorney General Bondi admitted, the video is not conclusive one way or the other. And so Bondi, is in the hot seat over this, the Attorney General, because she told us there was a list on her desk earlier in the year. Let's go to that video.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files.
Which is it? Did she have the records or not? And it caused a blow up in America because of this, because people are concerned about Epstein. They are upset of the double standards that someone like him is protected, and people presume in large measure because of who he knew. Is it whom he knew or who he knew? He knew who. I think it's whom, though. And of course, he was wealthy as well. And I went on Fox News with Laura Ingraham and before I get to that clip, so simultaneously, the day after this memo is released, or 2 days later, the Justice Department tells a court in our lawsuit for the Epstein records, we're still looking for records. So it's, on the one hand, the Justice Department is saying no one's getting one more record. Indeed, we haven't gotten it yet. And on the other, they tell the court we're still looking. And I raised this issue, and it was discussed with my friends Laura Ingraham and Molly Hemingway of The Federalist on Fox News. Let's run that.
And is Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch president, and Molly Hemingway, The Federalist editor-in-chief and Fox News contributor. Tom, here's what Kash Patel said about that Epstein client list shortly after he was nominated as FBI Director. Watch.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Tom, he sounded pretty definitive there, so what changed?
I think they decided for political purposes they didn't want to include the individuals who are on these lists and put them in the public domain. And they were concerned that some of them may not have done something warranting the disclosure. I mean, that's the most charitable interpretation. You know, but there is a list. There's no doubt. I mean, they talk about in the memo they wrote, well, there's no incriminating client list. Well, what does that mean? I want the non-incriminating client list. And of course, a client list is a term of art, right? Where are his associates? Where is the list of contacts? You know, and we asked under our FOIA lawsuit, Pam Bondi, give us the documents that you say you were looking at. Give us documents about the release of these documents. You said the FBI was obstructing the release. They came back to us and said, we have nothing.
Molly.
Well, this is a proxy for what we've seen with so many big stories throughout the years where the American people just want to know what's going on with
whatever
assassination attempts, you know, whether it's the one in Butler on Trump or the one that was successful against JFK, the Russia collusion hoax, the situation with Epstein. Everyone understands that there might not be a, you know,
smoking gun.
Right.
Or, yeah.
But no one feels very satisfied with the level of investigation that was taking place or the transparency. And it seems that the FBI and other government agencies care more about managing the narrative than actually just revealing the information that needs to be revealed.
And then we have interviews with former mobsters who actually was in the same jail as Epstein and had kind of a shocking claim. Watch.
Jeffrey Epstein would have to be a magician to try to hang himself in that cell. I was in that cell. There's no way there's nothing on the ceiling. The bedpost is this high. I couldn't even go to a restroom without them walking back and forth and having me on camera. You know, there's no way he committed suicide.
Tom.
You know, and Pam Bondi yesterday said that video they released isn't conclusive.
But it's a reset. That minute is a regular reset of the system.
And they're still looking for that minute. And to release video that doesn't show what happened in the cell isn't terribly persuasive. I'm not sure what they were expecting there. The fact is there are two competing forensics investigations, one by Epstein's family, which suggests that it was a homicide, and one by the examiner up in New York. He says it was a suicide. So given those issues, to say because the video doesn't show one way or the other whether someone went in there, to conclude, oh, well, there's nothing to investigate, seems odd. And they also said, we're not going to give you any more documents. And kind of with this, well, when there are too many conspiracy theories out there. And I don't like to be dissed like that. And Americans, I think, by and large, have questions about Epstein. And to be told that, you know,
he said that, I think Kash Patel made that point like a year before being nominated. But still, I mean, I think this all adds to the swirl of a bit of confusion about this and doubt. And again, the government only, I think, engenders trust among the American people with full transparency. So when Pam Bondi, and everyone knows how much I like Pam Bondi, I like her a lot. But when she says, well, those are basically never going to see the light of day. But who, was it downloaded child porn, or were there individuals engaged in acts with children? That's the question, I think. And unless either of you know what the definitive answer is, I don't know.
I mean, they talk about 1,000 victims. I mean, so was Epstein the only victimizer for that number of victims? I don't think so.
Well, just again, in general, there has not been the appropriate level of information shared. We know that the guy, I mean, maybe he didn't kill himself, or maybe he did. Why? Why was he in prison? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell still in prison? Why are all these people talking this way? There's no way that we've gotten a clear enough explanation of what's going on. How did he make his money? How did he get associations with so many high-level people? People are willing to accept any number of answers, but they need to be treated like adults in the communications.
Well, this is a sticky wicket they have in front of them. Tom and Molly, both of you, thank you very much.
That's a good discussion. And on top of that, we've got Pam Bondi getting called out in front of the national media and President Trump during a cabinet meeting, which we kind of referenced there. And President Trump is mad about this issue coming up. I don't blame him for being mad. But it was his two agencies that caused this issue. And a reporter asked Pam Bondi about it. And Trump reacted negatively, and I think Bondi's answer is interesting as well. So let's run that, number 26.
It worked for me. I like you better.
If I could ask the Attorney General a question too, Professor.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the stabbing?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey,
I
Pam,
could,
could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively, the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Mr. President, on the tariffs again, on August 1st, you've said is the deadline. What?
All right. So the video was inconclusive. There's a minute or so missing. Come on. And then she has an explanation for the documents. And I don't think she's necessarily lying about it. But our concern is she said she had the records on her desk, generally. And I know in our lawsuit they told us she had no records. So something's wrong. Either they don't know how to deal with FOIA or basic transparency law, or they're kind of panicking and just trying to move past this by saying like silly things like, we're not going to give you any more records about this issue, and thinking that should suffice. It's very strange. And I commented to Bannon the other day. I was on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, and I made the point. I said, I don't even think the Biden administration would try to come up with something like this. I know they're not the Biden administration. But the point being, an administration we would be very skeptical of, and a Justice Department would be very skeptical of, they would know that this wouldn't fly. And it's concerning that they thought this might fly, this memo. And you can see the president's furious. And he's down in Texas as we speak, trying to provide solace and leadership on the awful flooding and the hundreds of people killed, the children killed. And his FBI and Justice Department are doing this. It's awful. And he should be angry. And so they say that we're not going to release anything, and then, as I was highlighting, the Justice Department with Judicial Watch filed what is called a joint status report in our lawsuit for the Epstein records. So this is what happened. The Epstein records were released in part to some journalists, social media influencers. I don't know what it's called now. Social media influencers. I think that's the best way of putting it. And it was not received well by a lot of folks because it was a selective release to a select group of people. And, it turned out some of the material had already been released and there wasn't much understanding of what has been withheld and such. And then you had Attorney General Bondi and Kash Patel complain that they were obstructed in the review of documents by the FBI, I think up in New York. And all of a sudden they got thousands of pages they needed to review. And so we're looking at it here at Judicial Watch saying, what's going on here? So we asked give us the Epstein records and give us records about the handling of the Epstein records. And as I said earlier, they told us almost immediately, Pam Bondi has nothing. How does that comport with what she told Fox News earlier this year? How does it comport with what she told the American people during the cabinet meeting this year, just the past week? So here's the headline from our press release, which has caused, in light of that memo where they said you're not getting any records, imagine seeing that and then seeing this. Justice Department reports to court it was reviewing the FBI DOJ Epstein records for possible release. So they just leaked something to Axios and then ratified it subsequently. There's nothing to see and you can't have anything. You have to trust us. But then they tell the court in our case, in FOIA, federal law, federal court, oh, we're still looking at the records. And here's specifically what they said. If you go, I'll show you what the joint status report looks like. So what happens in FOIA litigation, I'm not a lawyer, but I do sit through a lot of cases, hundreds of them in my time here at Judicial Watch. Courts want to be kept abreast of how the cases are proceeding. We're suing for documents. The goal of the court is to get to the end point, right? Get the documents out, federal agency, fight with whoever you want to, fight over whatever you want to fight about in terms of potential withholdings, but we got to keep things moving. And one way for the courts to make sure that things are being kept moving is by requiring the parties, in this case Judicial Watch and the Justice Department, which sued the Justice Department and the FBI. When you sue the FBI, you're actually suing the Justice Department for the Epstein records. They said, tell me what's happening with this case. And so the joint status report was filed, and this is what it looks like. Oh, 1 second. I'm going a long way, you see. So there's the joint status report. See, it's a nice, got the caption, Judicial Watch versus Department of Justice. So part of the joint status report, it's kind of jointly written, each side gets to contribute. And in this case, the Justice Department contributed, the Justice Department attorney, a detail about the records. And it's worth reviewing because this is the reality of what's happening with the Epstein records. That memo signed on, unsigned, undated, leaked memo initially, isn't reality. It's not a court document, it's a memo stating a policy about document releases. Well, they didn't tell the federal court they weren't giving the American people any more documents. This is what they said. The anticipated number of documents responsive to plaintiff, Judicial Watch is the plaintiff, are FOIA requests and the anticipated dates for the release of the documents requested by plaintiff. So they don't provide the number of documents or the date. So we don't know when or if we're going to actually get documents, to be clear. But they're still reviewing and looking at the records for ultimate potential release. So according to this, the Federal Bureau of Investigation any and all Epstein records. The FBI has run its initial searches and is in the process of reviewing those search results for the FOIA requests numbered, -1662, etc. Communication of Director Patel regarding the Epstein client list. The FBI's search efforts are ongoing. And again, they don't have an anticipated number or anticipated dates for release. The Executive Office of the United States Attorney, so the U.S. Attorney's offices are where the prosecutions for Epstein took place, initially in Miami and then up in New York. They're still looking. This is an interesting one. The Office of Information Policy issued a final response to us on April 15th, informing plaintiff that no responsive records to our request was located. So that means that's the Attorney General's office. So she has now twice said that the Epstein records were on her desk in one form or another, either a client list or something else broadly. She complained about the records being obstructed in terms of her review, someone in the FBI obstructing them, the process of reviewing, and there's no records from her office about it. I'm skeptical, and we're not only, we're so skeptical that we are asking the Justice Department what's going on here outside this joint status report. So, Judicial Watch isn't going away. They may want to shuffle and slide this Epstein scandal away and think that this is going to be sufficient. It isn't. We are in federal court demanding answers on this. And as I said in the release, let me see what I said in the release. Because usually I say something pretty good in the releases and I forget it and don't tell you about it. The Justice Department and FBI are sending out contradictory messages telling the American people that no more Epstein material will be released, while telling the federal court in our case that the Epstein FOIA review is proceeding. But no matter, our FOIA lawsuit for the Epstein material continues. We will be relentless in demanding transparency under law. I'll say it again, Judicial Watch will be relentless in demanding transparency under law. And how else do I know there's something out with this FOIA? We have the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, his deputy director, Dan Bongino, and the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, in a battle as we speak over who's to blame for the memo. It is now being reported that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are threatening to quit unless Pam Bondi is fired. The reports are that Kash, at least Dan and Pam were getting into fights at the White House over this document release. Bondi's people were mad that there was a story leaked that suggested that Kash and Dan wanted these records out months ago, and that she was the holdup and the obstruction. So the leadership of the Justice Department and the FBI are in crisis right now because of their failure to handle properly the disclosure of this information. Now, of course, if they had asked me, I could have helped. Because I would have told them, hey, look, you've got this little old FOIA lawsuit here. Why don't you respond under law through the FOIA lawsuit, disclose what you think you are able to disclose under law, withhold what you think you ought to be able to withhold under law. Maybe we'll fight you on it, but at least the process will be there. We will know what documents are being released, what's being withheld, where you searched, what are the reasons for withholding any documents. Make your arguments. Make your arguments to the American people. Make your arguments to a federal court. Instead, they do this public debacle of a release earlier this year, and then they send out this memo, the likes of which I've never seen before. So you can be sure we're going to do a FOIA about the memo. And I don't, if these leaks are true about Dan and Cash being mad at Pam for not releasing the records, then why did the FBI sign on to a memo saying we're not going to release any more records? So I don't know who's right and who's wrong. I like Pam Bondi. I like Dan Bongino. I like Cash Patel. But, from my perspective as president of Judicial Watch, I just want the documents. I want accountability. The two agencies, the Justice Department and the FBI, nearly destroyed our republic last year and before that. And I'm not seeing it yet. I'm seeing elements of it. I'm seeing a little bit more transparency in some cases. But this is a cluster. Don't you agree? And they're mad at me. I hear it time and time again, indirectly, because I'm talking about this stuff. I mean, I had a video explaining. I mean, this is the kind of thing I guess that drives them crazy. So I'll just play it for you. So Judicial Watch just sued for the Epstein files. We want the client list. We want the documents the Justice Department and the FBI have about this scandal. We've been getting stonewalling, so despite the release of some records, it looks like other records haven't been released yet. Indeed, they haven't responded to our basic FOIA requests for this information. That's why we're in federal court now. The best way to understand what records are available, which records are being held secret, and where did they look for the records is to be in court. And that's where Judicial Watch is. And that's what we specialize in doing, getting secrets from the government they don't want you to know about. And people want to know about the Epstein scandal, and we aim to get to the bottom of it. So this is concerning, and it's Judicial Watch that, again, is kind of like the honest broker here, right, in the middle of it. We're expanding our investigations. You can bet there will be more lawsuits. And not only are there going to be more lawsuits, I'm emboldened to file more lawsuits. And my colleagues at Judicial Watch are very much interested in this because of the way things are being handled here. And to the end of getting more accountability, we filed another lawsuit on an Epstein issue today. Actually, we filed it yesterday, but we noted it today. We filed for records about his most famous victim. Judicial Watch sues for FBI records regarding Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre. And Ms. Giuffre committed suicide in April of this year. She's one of the most, as was reported by NBC, one of the most prominent survivors of his sexual abuse. And unfortunately, she died by suicide at the age of 41. In 2015, Giuffre, who is a U.S. citizen at birth, was among, I guess she's lived in Australia, so she left the United States, was among the first Epstein victims to go public. She was recruited by Maxwell. Giuffre reported years of sexual abuse and alleged she was trafficked to prominent individuals, including Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom, and she filed a civil lawsuit against Andrew, which is settled out of court in 2022 for an estimated 12 million pounds, which is $15 million in U.S. money. And she's dead. Big witness. And so where might there otherwise be documents that we're getting the runaround on now? In her FBI files. So that's why we asked for her FBI files. And the records we're seeking are pretty straightforward. This request includes, but is not limited to, all reports, transcripts, summaries, or similar records documenting any interviews or other conversations with Ms. Giuffre, as well as all records she provided to the FBI. And any records the feds, the FBI had with other law enforcement. So, as I say in the release, we are just, pushing for more transparency. Given the Justice Department and the FBI's decision to abandon the Epstein investigation, Judicial Watch has to step into the gap. And we are, and we're going to provide leadership. Our FOIA lawsuit for records about Epstein's most well-known victim is an important next step for accountability. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.